CJ Bailey is back for his true sophomore season as NC State looks to improve on a rather disappointing year last season as they finished the year 5-7 after some people thought they had the potential to maybe push for an ACC title. Obviously, we saw Grayson Rodriguez go down with injury, and then CJ Bailey took over, leading them to probably better than most people would expect with a true freshman quarterback. First up on the schedule is East Carolina, and this probably won't be too difficult of a game now that Bailey's in his second season. I think he's going to be a little more experienced, more comfortable, especially earlier on in the season. That should pay dividends in these first few games. Starting off with East Carolina, definitely a win.
Then the following week is going to be against Virginia. Now, even though both these teams are in the ACC, this is a non-conference game and should be a relatively interesting game. Virginia did not have a very successful season, has struggled to really elevate their football team over the past few seasons. And NC State, just with their youth, I think should be the more talented team here. Thrown the fact that it's at home for the Wolfpack, and I think they'll move to 2-0 here before going on the road to actually open up ACC play with a game against Wake Forest. And Wake Forest is probably going to be the worst team in the ACC next season. They do have maybe one or two guys on their team to look forward to, such as their transfer quarterback in Robbie Ashford coming from South Carolina, or their returning running back in Demond Claiborne. But the rest of the team is just not going to be able to compete with so much returning production like the Wolfpack have, particularly with their starting quarterback. I think the Wolfpack will move to 3-0 here and kick off ACC play with a win before a tough road trip to Duke.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a tough game because Duke is bringing in Tulane transfer quarterback Darian Mensah, and I think he's going to lead a very solid Duke team once again. This is a team that's outperformed expectations multiple times over the past few years. Had excellent quarterbacks with both Riley Leonard and now Malik Murphy, who transferred to Oregon State this past offseason. I think Duke's going to be a great team once again. And this is really a game where NC State's going to have to prove that they have gotten better from last season. And I think that they're actually going to be able to do it. Duke is a really good team, but we are taking NC State to pull off this early season upset. I think CJ Bailey really shows out on the road and surprises quite a few people in this game that they are not going to be favored to win.
Absolutely. And I think part of that is, like I said, so much of the team from last year is returning, and the few transfers they have slated to start are mostly graduate transfers. And I think that experience that they're bringing in is going to be a reason that they can be successful in these tougher games as long as those young guys continue to grow and become better and better players. Now, against Virginia Tech, going to be an interesting game. Kyron Drones back at quarterback for the Hokies. And Virginia Tech was a pretty competitive team last year. They finished the season 6-7, but did have some really, really close games, including losing that Miami game in controversial fashion. But it's going to be a different Hokies team next year. The secondary has lost a lot of key guys, whether it was to the NFL draft or to the transfer portal. But in this game, I think despite it being a road game for the Hokies, the fact that NC State's coming off of such a big win over Duke, I think they're going to get a little bit of a reality check and they're going to drop their first game of the season to the Hokies.
Next up is Campbell. That one's a pretty free win before a really tough road trip to Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish obviously losing a lot of players after making the national championship last season, Riley Leonard amongst them to the NFL draft, but Jeremiah Love is back. And they're going to have a young quarterback this season, which could prove a little bit interesting in some of these tougher games. But the home field advantage is on the side of the Fighting Irish, and I think that's going to play a key factor in this game. I think that the Fighting Irish will pull off a win here, dropping NC State to 5-2 heading into their first bye week.
And that Notre Dame game is the start of probably the toughest 6 game stretch to finish a season in the FBS. I don't know if it actually is, but it has to be up there along with some of the tougher schedules. Because after that Notre Dame game, they have a road trip to Pitt, and Pitt is returning Eli Holstein as their starting quarterback, along with plenty of weapons from last year and a defense that is going to be very, very good once again. It just comes down to, can Pitt avoid such a terrible collapse that they had last season? And I think that there's little to no chance that we see that level of a collapse again from the Panthers. But much like the Duke game, I think after a tough Notre Dame game and having a bye week, I think NC State will be able to rebound and win a very, very close game on the road against Pitt.
And this is a great way to start off such a tough stretch of games. Notre Dame was right before this, like Connor said. And then after this Pitt game, Georgia Tech, Miami, Florida State, North Carolina, not an easy way to end the season. The first one of those with Georgia Tech, Haynes King returning as the starting quarterback. And I think the Yellow Jackets are going to be really good this year. They're one of our dark horses in the ACC. This is going to be a really good game. Even though NC State has the home field advantage, though, I really, really like this Georgia Tech team. I do think that they're actually going to be able to pull off a win over the Wolfpack, dropping NC State to 6-3 here, headed into their second bye week.
And out of that second bye week, it is a road trip to face Miami. The Hurricanes bringing in Carson Beck to be their starting quarterback from Georgia after Cam Ward went first overall to the Tennessee Titans in the NFL draft. And while that is a significant downgrade from Cam Ward, Carson Beck is still a proven winner and did have success under Kirby Smart at Georgia. Now it's just, can Mario Cristobal get the same level of success out of Carson Beck that Kirby Smart was able to? And if he can, this Miami team is going to be very dangerous because they have revamped their entire defense, bringing back a lot of starters and using the transfer portal to plug in the holes. Offensively, they still have plenty of weapons surrounding Carson Beck, even with so many going to the NFL as well. I think Miami, in this case, especially with the home field advantage, will be the better team compared to NC State. And I think the Wolfpack will drop to 6-4 here, but could be a very sneaky game, especially with the bye week in between in such a tough stretch of games. Maybe NC State surprises some people, but I think overall Miami is going to be the better team.
Then it's a matchup with Florida State. Thomas Castellanos transferring in from Boston College after beating Florida State last season. I think he is going to be a much needed replacement at the quarterback position after we saw how DJ Uiagalelei performed last season, leading Florida State to an abysmal 2-10 season. The Seminoles should be much improved this year, bringing in a lot of players across the board. I think overall, they will be a pretty comparable team to NC State, probably a little bit more talented, which is why we think they'll be favored, even though they're on the road. I think once again, because this stretch is so difficult, NC State's going to struggle a little bit here. Again, even though they're at home, I do think that Florida State is going to pull off this win, dropping NC State down to 6-5.
And like Jonas said, it's purely because Florida State has really gone after a ton of weapons for Thomas Castellanos. And I think just that amount of talent they have bringing in, with just a little bit more experience at the quarterback position, even if it isn't in the same system, by this point in the season, I think Florida State will be a slightly better team, even if it is a road trip for the Seminoles. Then to finish off the season, the Wolfpack will have their in-state rivalry game against the North Carolina Tar Heels. North Carolina, big story is Bill Belichick is their head coach. And can he bring the same success that he had in the NFL to the college football level? We shall see, especially with bringing in Gio Lopez from South Alabama. It's just a matter of, can the weapons surrounding Gio Lopez produce enough for him to succeed in this Tar Heel system? And can some of the defensive players step up after some key departures, such as Bo Atkinson on the defensive line? It's going to be a really interesting game. It's going to be youth from NC State versus a team built in the transfer portal under a well-respected head coach, just in general in the sport of football. I think though we might see a bit of an upset here, and the Wolfpack will move to 7-5, beating their in-state rivals in the Tar Heels.
Our way too early projection for NC State was 5.35 wins. We had them going only 5-7. That prediction has improved a little bit to 7-5 now. We do think that with another year under the belt for CJ Bailey, this Wolfpack team can improve. And I think that they will be a pretty solid team. It's really just a byproduct of their schedule being so difficult at the end of the year that they wouldn't finish with an even better record than 5-7. Really, we were just way too low on them originally. So I think 7-5 is much more likely. The projection has come up as well over a bowl game now at 6.15 wins, 5.85 losses, 3.4 and 4.6 in ACC play. The floor is going to be 5-7. That's really if CJ Bailey just doesn't perform as well as he did last season. 2-6 in the ACC, and the ceiling going to be 9-3, 6-2 in ACC play. Really going to be tough to hit that mark with how difficult the schedule is, but it's not completely impossible. Just going to have to play a near perfect season in order to do it. But again, like we've been saying with the difficult schedule, 9-3, if they can get to the ACC championship game, could potentially get NC State into the playoffs, although incredibly unlikely. So thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video.